Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and I'm back. Uh, Last night I watched Predator for the first time, and I it was the first time I watched it because I don't really enjoy ultra violent movies, and it just seemed like kind of like gratuitously violent movie. But I decided to watch it just so I knew what it was all about, and so now I want to look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's chart. Um, it was okay. It was very dated and very old for now, the special effects and whatnot. But anyway, um, let's get into it. Alrighty. So he's a Leo sun with conjunct Saturn and Pluto in the second house. Sun is technically in the first, but it's pretty close to the second house cusp. And the flow is towards second house with Saturn and Pluto here. And Leo is in good dignity. It's in domicile, or Sun in Leo is in domicile. So that's good dignity. And Pluto does pretty well in Leo. A lot of people say it's exalted. Saturn does not do well in Leo because it's opposite its rulership in Aquarius, but it gains dignity from the Sun and Pluto. And this combination is very, very intense, very heavy, because Pluto and Saturn together just create such a seriousness, a serious, heavy quality. It's a very almost unforgiving, uh, contractive force together. Um, and we can see this in his movies. He plays like a bad guy very well, like or like a killer, or like a army guy, or just somebody. He's not always bad, but he's always somebody who's like going around killing people, whether it's killing good people or killing bad people. And the weight of his words, I mean, we just feel it. Like he's been in a few comedies, but that's not what we really want from Arnold Schwarzenegger. We don't want some lighthearted comedy. We want to see him, you know, you know, doing something very violent. uh, I mean, I don't. It's not that I enjoy those violence, but that's kind of what he's good at. I mean, he's not really cut out for more lighthearted roles. He's just very heavy, very intense, very powerful and strong. And then the second house dealing with speech, which is we often see actors with a heavy, strong, not heavy, strong um, second house because the voice. They need that voice, right? A powerful voice. Um, then we have like these great one-liners that we get from Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back, and like it's just we repeat that because of this quality. There's just so much power and weight and force behind his words, and seriousness and intensity. And he takes himself so serious because second house is all about values, self-worth, values. Um, how he perceives himself, and there's so much pride and seriousness and intensity about who he is. And he has tremendous amount of faith in himself. He was the governor, and he even had ambitions to be president of the United States, but he can't be because he's not a citizen, or he's not he wasn't born here. He is a citizen. He wasn't born here. And that's okay because yeah, there's some things that we probably wouldn't want him for president. And I know some of his views, and he's just kind of anyway. He's a celebrity. He's not really like a deep thinker, um, in my opinion. But anyway, he's got Mercury on the ascendant, in Cancer ascendant, and Mercury does great. That's probably his strongest position on the ascendant. It gains a lot of dignity and strength, not necessarily in Cancer, but just being on the ascendant itself. And great for acting, great for politics, especially because it's ruling the third and fourth house cusp. third for expression, for speaking, communication, fourth house. So not just acting, but if he's giving speeches as well, you know, in politics or whatever, he likes doing that sort of thing. He's good at it. Fourth house, definitely for politics, because fourth house represents homeland. And even though he's Austrian native, if he's living in California, that does become his home. And so that he can represent California as well, because fourth lord is coming into the first house and it's Mercury. So that for politics, that's excellent. Governor. Venus also in the first house, excellent for bodybuilding. Now he has a pretty diverse chart, and we see that all over the place, like, and he's done a lot of different things. But as far as bodybuilding, like if you ever watch any of those documentaries with him in there, where he's like competing against, I remember I saw one where he's competing against Lou Ferrigno. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's body is just like, it's like a marble statue. I mean, Lou Ferrigno is kind of like this, you know, just what? I don't know. I don't want to be mean, but Arnold is just like far more, his body's like a work of art. He's just far more beautiful, like just from a purely objective point of view. And that's Venus in the first house. Venus is really beautiful, making his whole body very beautiful. That's what it does. Anyone who has Venus in the first house is going to have that quality, even if they're not bodybuilders. It's going to add a beautiful quality to their body, to their personality, to their self. And yeah, that's very evident with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's won tons of bodybuilding competitions. It's not just for his muscles; it's also because Venus is here, and you know, making him very, you know, Venusian, beautiful. That's also why he was, you know, really good in movies too, because of that you know, he's got a beautiful form. His moon, which is the ascendant lord, is in the sixth house of competition, and it is in detriment in Capricorn, so that's not great. But sixth house competition, I mean, you know, he was born to compete. Let's put it that way. And that the moon, if the moon's not in good dignity here, that means he's going to win. He's going to he's going to do anything within his power to win. Above board, below board. He's not going to be necessarily fair about it. Not that he needs to be unfair, you know, with such, you know, Venus in the first house, especially. That's very excellent for bodybuilding. But in competitions, you know, Moon in Capricorn is just wants to win. You know, Capricorn's all about success, and the Moon doesn't really have, you know, it's not being very Cancerian with anymore. It's being very ambitious. You know, internally he's just very ambitious. So he's just gonna win. He wants to win. He's all about winning. Arnold Schwarzenegger. So yeah. Moon is sextile Chiron in Scorpio, and then Jupiter's in Scorpio. So Jupiter and Scorpio in the fifth house. This does relate to acting, creativity, performance, things like that, being on stage. Also, this fifth house loves to perform. Fifth house, you often see, it's about games, so it's also about sports, you know. So there is an element as well here where we can see both acting and bodybuilding, where there's Jupiter here. It's in Scorpio, so that's pretty intense. And also we get, you know, you can see that, like, okay, he played the kind of roles he plays, like, you know, just it's not just the muscles. It's you know, like in Terminator, Jupiter and Scorpio in the fifth house. Jupiter can be very physical, right? And it's huge. Jupiter's big, very expansive. So we get this big scorpionic kind of performance from him. That's what he's good at, and it's very evident here. So I think this is very fitting as well. Jupiter, let's see. Jupiter is ruling his MC. So, career, fifth house career, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Terminator, uh, what else? Let's see. I mean, Predator, Running Man. I don't know all his movies. He's in a lot of different movies, and he always plays a very similar role. He's carrying a gun, he's beating people up, he's being a big bad. You know, whether he's good or bad, he's a badass, right? Like just muscles and I'll be back and don't fuck with me kind of thing. Yeah. He's got his south node, and then sixth house lord is also Jupiter. So competition going into fifth house, performance, he's very competitive, very you know, he also had health issues, which is interesting, heart issues, which is definitely relates to moon in the sixth house, not in good dignity. That's interesting. And Jupiter is the south node lord. So when he was younger, then also very into fifth house, fifth and sixth house, because it's bringing in the sixth house. So competition, and then Jupiter becoming big in the sports arena, in performance. And then Scorpio. Scorpio is very, very intense, right? Very driven, very motivated, deep, and he was a very for things like this, we want to look at Jupiter and Mars as well. I'll get to Mars, but right now it's just Jupiter. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. But this Jupiter is just, it's also his belief system is becoming very dark and scorpionic. So we don't always know what's hidden beneath the surface with Scorpio. Jupiter's not necessarily going to tell. So his belief system, his philosophy, his religious beliefs could be very dark and hidden. We don't know what he believes. And he could be very dark himself in nature. Not necessarily, but we're getting a picture with the moon in Capricorn, Jupiter in Scorpio. He could have a dark philosophy, dark, heavy philosophy. His father, by the way, was a Nazi, and he was beaten as a child. So we looked at the moon. You can see that here. Moon in detriment, and then what? We're not so, I mean, this, fourth Lord Virgo, I mean, Cancer, but anyway, the moon, we definitely see some of that. And then we see a heaviness here with his Jupiter. Scorpio is so intense and driven. He was very, very driven to succeed, even at a young age. And yeah, he was beaten by his parents, but they didn't, according to him, that was meant to break him, because that was the German Austrian society at the time. It was just they wanted conformity, and he was a rebel. And we definitely get that with the Mars conjunct Uranus. We're not getting a lot of dignity in his chart, except the Sun and Pluto, and Mercury on the ascendant. Jupiter and Scorpio is not great. Anything in Scorpio is not great because Scorpio is nature. It's a very, very difficult sign. But if it has a connection to Mars, that's better. And there's not really much of a connection to Mars. There's a slight inconjunction quantifying this Jupiter, but not really, not very much. But Mars is conjunct Uranus, and here's the rebellion. It's in Gemini. Not much of a connection to Mercury, although almost 30 degrees, which is a minor, it's semi-sextile, I guess. Anyway, Mars and Uranus and Jupiter. So this is very rebellious because regardless of what planets Mars is ruling, Mars is Uranus is making Mars more independent and rebellious and defiant towards authority. You know, if somebody tries to, bully him, he's just not going to take it. And it is ruling the 10th, Mars is ruling the 10th whole sign house. So that's interesting. I mean, you have to look at both. So, and 12th house is, for film, for cinema, for movies, for acting, for arts and creativity. 12th house, also for foreign lands. It's very prominent. Grew up in Austria, moved to America. So that's prominent. 5th house of creativity. Fifth lord in the 12th house is excellent for creativity, arts, cinema, movies, things like that. And it's Mars, 10th whole sign house Mars. So we're getting a feel for that. But Mars in Gemini is interesting. I mean, Mars in Gemini is great for, the movies and speaking roles because Gemini expression, things like that. But I don't really see a lot of bodybuilding in that. Potentially Jupiter and Scorpio, yeah. But not so much Mars and Gemini. That's more for like somebody who wants to be very physically agile. Like I know Mike Tyson has Mars and Gemini. That's why one of the things that made him a great boxer. Like he was just everywhere. Like he was just moving. Like even as strong as he was just, he could move very nimbly. So Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini says somebody who's very nimble on their feet and can really move. But he was not a boxer. He was not a dancer. But as an actor, I think that does make sense. He's got his north node, 0 degrees, Gemini. So that is quite interesting as well, because it's in the 11th house of career success, and it's in Gemini. So again, Mercury. All these things are going towards his ascendant. So that does make sense. I mean, he is like this persona, very strong persona. So North Node is going towards his ascendant. 12th house cusp with Mars and Uranus towards his ascendant. 3rd and 4th house cusp towards his ascendant. A lot of things are coming to him. Right, so that's interesting. That's quite good. There's a really nice trine between Jupiter and Mercury and the ascendant. So there's this strong connection here, making him Jupiterian, creating a lot of connection between his ascendant and Jupiter. So he's able to make his body Jupiterian, right? This is his body. Jupiter is big. Scorpio is intense and strong and dark and heavy and sexual and powerful. So all those things are connecting to his body. But I want to bring up his draconic chart because I think that makes things even more clear for Arnold Schwarzenegger and who he is and why he's so such a force, good and bad, right? First of all, let's look right at the top here. So this Mars is not, it's not like all that. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, this beast, why was he such a beast? Well, draconic chart, as I've already explained, reveals like it relates to the moon, so it's more of an internal feeling, and it has other moon connotations like past influences and like karmic ties. So it's more like a hidden internal feeling rather than an external expression. It relates to the north node of the moon. So it's tied to the moon. Don't forget that. So internally, even though you know, his Mars and Uranus are in Gemini in the 12th house. Draconically, Mars is in Aries in excellent dignity. And Uranus is in Aries too, and they're right at the top of the chart. Boom, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, big Martian guy, right? That makes a lot of sense. He was super driven to succeed. And then look at the North Node, it's right conjuncting his MC as well. So again, like, you know, career, success, rising to the top, muscles at the top, right? And then we get the sun, and then look at his ascendant. It's in Taurus. Again, Taurus, and Venus is in Taurus. Taurus is very physical. Taurus, you know, I think the rock is Taurus, right? You'd want to see some Taurus, not necessarily, but it does make a lot of sense to have a strong Taurian influence for somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Really physical, really material, right? The guy's not like a spiritual guru, you know. Let's not kid ourselves. He's a physical beast. He's got Venus and Taurus, conjunct Taurus ascendant, Mercury, you know, still all the planets are still going to be in the same aspect. They're not going to move. They're just going to change sign and position in relation to the natal chart. So in the 11th house of career success, we get Sun's in Gemini. So acting, speaking, you know, politician, stuff like that. That also makes sense. And then also conjunct his natal North Node, right? North Node conjunct the Sun often indicates fame. And then it's also conjunct, you know, the ascendant, even though it's out of sign, it's still, well, more Venus than the ascendant. It's 5 degrees out of sign, but still. So Venus is very strong here. Mars is very strong here. We're getting a lot more dignity in his draconic chart than we were in his natal chart. And that's interesting. That's important. And then we get this heavy Saturn, Pluto conjunction also in Gemini. So strong draconic Gemini influence as well, and strong natal draconic Gemini Gemini influence as well. So the strong Gemini, which is definitely relates to acting, speaking, expression, things like that, right? Neptune is conjunct his sun in Leo, draconic Neptune. Neptune is the planet for film, photography, the arts, creativity, fantasy, movies, you know. So actors and actresses often have very strong Neptune. So Neptune over his sun is really very pertinent for him becoming an actor. And he wanted to become an actor right away as soon as he was, you know, probably even before he was done his bodybuilding career. But I know, like, as soon as his bodybuilding career was over or nearly over, he wanted to move into acting. So acting is very prominent in his chart. Jupiter in the 3rd house, draconic. You know, again, that's just activating the third house, communication, expression. South node in the 4th house, again, real estate. He's into real estate too, this businessman. You know, he bought like restaurants and gyms and things like that. So real estate also very prominent, as well as, you know, 4th house can be politics as well as real estate. So again, that makes a lot of sense. And then look at his moon. So with what I look for are themes that overlap. So we got a debilitated moon, or sorry, in detriment moon, and then a draconic debilitated moon. So what's his conjunct Chiron in Scorpio, no less. The guy's moon is not very well. He's not very happy, like inside. And so remember I said, like, we would not want him as president. I think his upbringing, his childhood, his father being a Nazi, him being beaten as a child, made him very deeply negative inside. And although he's very successful and he looks like a nice guy, and like if you're kind of stupid and just look at superficial, you're just like, oh, the governor, he's great, he's wonderful, he's Superman, he's awesome. Like we want him, sure. He's a movie star, he's great. Like those are idiots, frankly, who don't really understand people's soul and where they're coming from on a deeper level. This is painful. Natal Chiron and Scorpio conjunct Draconic Scorpio moon. In the fifth house. I mean, not so good. Not so good. Descendant in Scorpio. He was unfaithful to his wife. That's not, I mean, a lot of people were unfaithful. He had a child, he had an illegitimate child with his housekeeper. Scorpio, fifth house, with all these planets, that definitely makes sense. And because Scorpio is very hidden, fifth house is children, Jupiter, moon, descendant is others, right? Partnerships. So I mean, I'm not going to fault him for that necessarily. It's not great, but it's not necessarily the worst thing. The worst thing is that he might implement some very not so good things. He's the type of person who would be easily swayed by dark forces. I'm not just saying that by his chart. I'm also saying that because I know that some of the things that he stands for. And I know during the pandemic, he was like, screw your freedoms, just do what you're told. I mean, raised by Nazis, beaten as a child, come on. With Capricorn moon and then Scorpio Draconic moon. Yeah. So, great bodybuilder, beautiful physique, great actor, great at being like, all the, the Jupiterian Scorpio, like Terminator type predator, killer, hunter, guy with a gun that goes around beating up people, and shooting people. Sure, that's awesome. He's probably okay at business, but I don't want him as my governor or president or anything like that. He's got some darkness inside him. So it's really interesting. I mean, once you bring in the draconic chart, and I'm just starting to really see this working in real life, like really working. I love it. I think it adds another dimension. And for Arnold Schwarzenegger, it really explains a lot. Mars in Aries right at the top of the charts, ascendant in Taurus and Venus, the doubling over of the undignified moon, Chiron, a lot of internal issues and pains, emotional pains from growing up. His father was a Nazi. His father did some horrible things, like killing Jews. I mean, I don't know the details and nobody really knows, but I'm sure he did. And so, yeah, not very good for his deep internal makeup. Some negative karma there because we take on the karma from our parents. Anyway, that's Arnie for you. And so yeah, that's that. And hope you found it interesting. And if you want to book a reading, go to my website, macroastrology.com. You can also email me at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. Thanks, guys. All right, bye.